We proceed towards the next session of the day, ladies and gentlemen, which is Women in Today's Global Litigation Profession, Opportunities and Challenges in a Post-Pandemic World That Stands Significantly Disrupted. Our moderator for this session is partner Shardul, Amarchand, Mangaldas and Company, Miss Misha. Please do join us on the stage. Miss Misha, let's welcome her with a big hand. She's been working very closely on matters pertaining to insolvency, bankruptcy, restructuring, general corporate laws, and related litigations and arbitrations. Warm welcome, Miss Misha. Our second panelist, Miss Meenakshi Arora, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, has been practicing in the Supreme Court since 1985, is a Senior Designated Counsel. She brings over 29 years of experience and expertise in the field of litigation and is considered one of the leading counsels in the country. Warm welcome, ma'am. May we now invite upon the stage for this panel discussion, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, Miss Geeta Luthra. Let's warmly welcome her with a big hand. She's been practicing in the Supreme Court of India, the Delhi High Court, and various other courts. She is the Vice President of the Indian Council of Arbitration, FICCI, member ICC India, Chapter Core Committee, and member Lavasia and International Academy of Family Lawyers. All right. Well, meanwhile, she can join and we can begin this discussion. Perhaps she can join later on.
We can.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, we don't have Geeta ma'am with us as yet, but I think she should be joining us any moment. She's just finishing one of her trial court appearances and will be with us. It's truly a privilege to be here with Meenakshi ma'am and Geeta ma'am, who's going to join us very soon. And I'm pretty excited as a moderator to ask all the questions which I've been, wanting to ask these leading ladies of our profession. Both of them don't need any introduction. Meenakshi ma'am is a first-generation lawyer. She was just recently telling me she did her law from Baroda, and in 1980s, at some point of time, she moved bag and baggage to Delhi to set up her own practice. And what's most interesting is not only that she's established herself as a leading lawyer in this country, designated as a senior counsel. I think she was the fifth woman senior counsel to be designated by the Supreme Court of India. But what's truly incredible about ma'am is that she's completely dominated the area of commercial laws and is the go-to lawyer as a senior counsel for commercial matters. I can go on about appreciation for Meenakshi ma'am, but I guess let me delve into this session, and the theme for this topic is global litigation and women in this area. Ma'am, so how do you see the litigation practice changing today? What are the new trends you see, and how is it different from the time you started the profession?
Okay, so as women, we have come a long way. I remember getting into the corridors of Supreme Court sometime in '86, and we were barely 40 women or so. And amongst the 40 who had joined, maybe 30 of us left, dropped out. The hours were too long, you had families, got married, moved on. So survival rate in the profession, very, very small. But today, I can say I'm really encouraged, very happy. There are many more women. Okay, the percentage, as I just saw what was reported in the parliament, is still very small for India, because apparently it seems that only about, out of the reported, it's only about 15% women who take to litigation. But I see that at least in Delhi, Mumbai, the metros, the numbers are substantially more, maybe 30% in some places and all, and women are staying on. So I think that's a very remarkable change that's happened between, if I look at '86 and if I look at today. Yeah.
Great. So Geeta ma'am has made entry right in time. As usual in the court appearances as well. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for being here. We just started the panel. So I was just a brief introduction for Geeta ma'am, not that she needs any. So she's, leading the practice of law as a senior advocate in very interesting areas of law, criminal law being one of them, arbitrations, commercial laws, constitutional issues. And she's known for being very vociferous in, about many public issues, and somebody, we all women can aspire to be in terms of frankness of her opinion and the attitude, the fearless attitude with which she carries herself. So ma'am, I just started with an initial question in terms of with Meenakshi ma'am as to what change we are seeing in the litigation practice nowadays, and what are the new trends and how it is affecting women according to you. I hope I've given you enough time. Do you need to?
Hello. It is on, but can you hear me? Hello. So, what changes are we seeing in litigation practice? I think, forget changes in litigation practice qua, all men, women, and litigants. I see a big change for women. I see women actually participating in all kinds of litigation. We are seeing exceptional women as general counsel. We are seeing women come as senior counsels. Although I recall when Delhi High Court had its first senior counsel, which was not very long ago, and I think it's women's pressure that has made them now sort of say, all right, let's get in more women counsel before we get a protest from women. We had one woman counsel who was taken on, who was about, I think, 75 or 78, and someone said, well, she's anyway past her prime, let's at least make her a senior. We want a token senior. Now that was, to my mind, not something which was well said or very acceptable. And when women were wanting to apply for seniorship, the whole issue was they could be argumentative and they could be stringent. Now, we saw many male senior counterparts being even more aggressive, more argumentative. You would almost be seeing them run across their podium and be on the other side while they were being argumentative. But that wasn't an issue. So women started in, so one of the softer areas was family law. So that became one. IPR became another soft area in that sense. So women went into IPR. Now, with corporate law, with litigation, we still have very few women. Honestly, it is really a man's world out there, whatever you may say. But I think our women, whoever have made it and whoever are going to make it, will hold on to their own.
So, ma'am, both of you raised very relevant issues in terms of, the issues we continue to face as a women in litigation space. So, when I was interviewing at campus recruitment way back in 2005, I remember, in interviews going like, I being specifically advised by the recruiters that you'll do better in transactional work, don't look for rough and tumble world of the litigation, and we feel you'll fit in better in a transactional work kind of a role. it was a separate thing that I was just too fascinated as a child with the gown and, the arguing experience before the court. So I never got deterred by that. But do you feel that even today there is this tendency about hesitance in women coming forward and practicing law and in courts, and rather preferring maybe, or there being a general narrative around that it's safer, it's better for women to be a transactional lawyer perhaps, or even in-house lawyers, with all due respect to be transactional lawyers and in-house lawyers. I know their jobs are incredibly tough and demanding. But the fact that in litigation you have long hours, you have very little control over your schedules, and you're shoulder to shoulder with men in the courtroom, and you need to be heard. A feminine voice may not be loud enough to be heard in a court of law. So all these things go on, and also very importantly, issue of safety and security of women practicing law, because as you said, it's a male-dominated profession, and a lot of it is unorganized. I have been lucky to practice in a shelter of a law firm, and where I have been looked after personally. But are these some of the concerns which are still preventing women from entering litigation actively?
Let me answer first, and it's going to be very disparate 2 points that I thought, which came immediately to my mind when Misha said this. One was that I myself could be guilty. When women come to me sometimes saying parents are concerned, and they're bright, they're brilliant, they're very good, and they come, parents are not very happy, we are going home at 9, 10, 11, because the sky is the limit if you're working like this. And I tell them, did you think that you might want to join the judiciary at some stage? And I'm not being disparaging about the judiciary. I'm talking about the judiciary as is civil judges or additional district judges, because there is going to be a time. You're not going home. Maybe a High Court, Supreme Court, you may be going or working till wee hours, but this. So sometimes we ask, and I think that's such a sexist statement by me, that you don't ask your male colleagues that, but you can ask your female colleagues this question. So this is one aspect. The other aspect which came to my mind was this, that as women, of course, there is a lot of challenge. And in India particularly so, where everybody thinks they have a right to your mobile number, they are affronted if you don't give the mobile number. Is it, what kind of lawyer is this? They're not even giving me their mobile number, as if they can live our lives, And everybody starts with the statement, whether it's 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, sorry to disturb at this time. And then they go on with their question. If you are so sorry, please don't disturb. And particularly, many people will disturb you at odd times. So I feel that as long as you don't, even if there is a gender bias or a gender challenge, I feel that at least I as a person never wore gender on my sleeve. I never even thought about it. Because if you think about it, then it will prey on your mind and your quality of performance. Forget it. It doesn't matter. You have to do what you have to do, and you have to do it well. You have to do it very, very well.
Okay. I take it, litigation is in adrenaline, right? So once you get into it, believe me, it's so addictive, you won't look at transaction. It's every day a new challenge, a new issue. It's like a game of chess or a war game that you are trying to crack and get it. Now, there are many more women, young women today, and I feel really good about it because I see them enjoying the litigation. So yes, Misha is absolutely right that at one time women thought having a desk job, transactional was better, courts are crowded, men are loud, may not be very safe. Many of us dropped out. But the few of us who stayed on, it was really like that addiction, to get into the court, to crack this thing and get that relief out of the judge, get him to a point where I want him to be. Now, that's one part of the enjoyment. So if you enjoy it, only then get into a litigation, because litigation has a flip side. It's very demanding, and so I'm sure it's in your corporate setups. Like all other of us, the hours are long, they are demanding, but if you like it, you enjoy it, then it's fun. Work is not work. It's a game all the time. That's one part. Now, coming to a point of the courtrooms. So this is something that I faced when I started to move on in my practice from being an advocate on record. Now, I was lucky. When I got into the practice, I worked with my senior who did a lot of commercial work like excise and customs. So I trained in that. People initially came to me on that. A little regret I have somewhere that when I got designated, people thought that I'm more family matters, but they still come to me with fair bit of commercial matters, but that's a different part. I leave it where it is. When I got started into an arguing practice, I would find women have a small disadvantage, but we have to learn to convert it into our advantage. And which is what? We can't be loud. The minute we become loud, unlike my male colleagues who have very nice baritone, loud voices, can be heard across that distance to the judge. If we become loud, we become shrill, and our voices become jarring to the bench. So the issue was, how am I going to get myself heard? All these guys, light, left, tall, big, and I was like, I was tall, but I was very, very thin, if I may say so, in my early years. So get lost in that huge crowd. And then I taught myself, and I think it's a matter of self-teaching. It's a matter of learning as we go along and pass it on to the youngers. Then I realized one day, the only way I'm going to get myself heard is, I've got to position myself somewhere. Position when these guys stop, I have to jump in. And then make sure none of them butt in when I am speaking. Catch the judge's ear when these guys have had their say, and they are now spent, and get my say there. So it worked. So what I'm trying to say is, it can be a little, you have to find ways and things of doing it. But if you enjoy your work, you enjoy the litigation, you're going to find ways to stick on. You're going to find ways to be there and to take it on. If you give it up, that particular fight, then you give it up anywhere. It's not just litigation, because I think every part of it, your side, her side, is all about a challenge. It's all about crossing that first goalpost and the second goalpost and the third goalpost. So I think that's the way I took it, and
Thank you, Ram. Thanks. Interesting there. So it just brings me up to another issue, which was in my mind to ask both of you. When it comes to business development or getting clients or getting more business, do you feel we as women are at some disadvantage, not only in terms of maybe prejudices and bias which may be there in the minds of the client or may not be there, but just in terms of being able to approach clients for work, market yourself or position yourself in a manner to attract more work. For instance, in a law firm setup, every partner or any senior lawyer after a certain point of time is expected to bring in some business. It goes with the hierarchy. But unlike a male colleague who may just be comfortable picking up the phone and talking to the client or setting up a meeting, do you feel women at some level have a disadvantage there? And how do you see, what can be the strategies in terms of, or what works for women in attracting clients and good work?
You want to go first? I just heard the very powerful corporate women before me say, we have to now learn to position ourselves. I will agree with the fact that yes, in my early years and maybe even now, maybe we don't give enough credit to ourselves. And maybe it's a lack of self-confidence somewhere, because we were the ones who started off as very few, and each step of the way was one step after the other to grow, to be accepted. So maybe my generation had those issues, but what I'm very happy about is I don't see that in the younger generation. Now come to a point of building up a clientele. Yes and no. There are certain areas where women, I am speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for anyone, but I did find myself at a disadvantageous position, and that was going out for late evening parties, too much of drinks, and too much of the shop talk. I was uncomfortable doing it. So I would go, I would meet, I'd say hello, but I know it was a fake stuck-up smile, and I would make my exit. And I'd say, let my work show for itself. But no, you may work very, very hard, but it needs that little extra leverage to be able to position yourself and to be able to get that client. Because we are so male-dominated in the legal profession that the ordinary reaction is commercial matter, high stakes, it's a man who's going to do it. Woman, oh, she will do a family matter very well. Now, that's something that really bothers me even today. But I think there must be a way to change this. There must be a way how we get out of this thing about having the late parties and a drink. There must be a way to get over it. I am trying to find one. If you do, please come and share that with me, because there are many youngers behind us, who are younger to me, who will want to know how to go about that. But in the interregnum, let your work speak for yourself. The minute you go, you do that fight in the court, you show that you are capable of it, you are equal as compared to any other male colleague, believe me, the work is going to follow.
So yes, this is a big area of concern, and really now you see in the last few years, you see women networking. You didn't see it earlier. And you see them networking across various forums. You did not see it earlier. And of course, you can't market yourself. In fact, one of the issues that I was thinking in my mind was take criminal cases when we do. Last week, there was some Makoka matter which I was doing. And because it pertained to terrorists and terrorist crime, I said to myself, let me not get a female colleague in this, because they can be very rough. And you don't really, if you're doing it as a trial, which was what I was doing, you want to protect your female colleagues. So a lot of them are doing criminal work with me, but I said, let me go to this firm and I'll ask the male partner to do it with me. So why? Because although I feel it's perfectly safe to go to Tihar jail to do interviews, but sometimes these people become aggressive if they are not getting their orders or there is delay, and you want to protect the woman colleague from it. You don't want to send a young woman colleague to work speaks for itself, of course, quality speaks, but the end of it is that networking also speaks. And my generation, or maybe we have not been good at it. That's the truth. So I think, in a sense, I saw that in the women's white-collar crime group when I was in London, that they've started, some of these women have started saying, we will only engage women seniors if we can manage and somebody fits the niche. We are going to stand together. And I saw so much solidarity there, which obviously we don't have that kind, or we are many years behind them in developing. I'm sure it will come with time.
Very well said, ma'am. In fact, that reminds me of a recent post I was looking at Instagram, and it asked a question that when you look at another woman as a woman, have you ever looked at that woman with a pure appreciation, without feeling competition, jealousy, or a comparison? So I think there's a lot which goes into years of a hierarchy of the gender bias, but in my experience, when women face issues of being able to work late night or choose professions from the ordinary calling of women as it is called in the society, or choose to litigate, or choose for going for a practice area like criminal law, right? Or as Meenakshi ma'am was saying, that even though you may be good at excise laws, you may have done commercial litigation, but people, the moment they hear, oh, there's a woman senior advocate, okay, for a family law matter, let's go there. There is that kind of labeling, if we may say, but there's a lot which, as women, I think we ourselves have contributed. And I think there's a question to be asked by every woman when we look at our own competition, or we look at our own colleagues. Can we step out of that comparative state of mind? Can we step out of our personal biases or jealousy towards a woman's success, and just purely appreciate what the woman stands for? Having said that, from the perspective of litigation, choosing litigation as a career as a woman, how much do you think economic security is in concern? And I'll go by my own personal example. Like, I went through, and Gita ma'am, you're familiar with that phase, when I went through a divorce, and it made a lot of difference, a hell lot of a difference, that I was independent and earning well, and I didn't have to think twice. But for women, choosing litigation at times can be challenging, because unless you're practicing in a law firm or otherwise, economic security may become an issue, and sometimes it's a very long journey to make it to the top.
Okay. So I think I have a personal experience, and I take on this particular part. Apart from the fact that I have no background, no family in this profession, and I moved out of home after doing my law to some advertisement. Now, this is like just telling you that just don't always look at the economics of it, and if you just grit it. And I've always said this for myself, and I tell many young women that dig your heels, stand in there, and you're going to make it. And that's speaking for myself there. I saw this advertisement from Ahmedabad, some lawyer wanting a junior, and I was in Baroda, so I responded to this advertisement, packed up my bag and went to Ahmedabad. So an old guy who didn't want to go into courts anymore, wanted a young junior to run around and do his cases. Princely sum of 500 rupees is what he offered me. So I said, how am I going to live? This is not enough to keep body and soul together. But in any case, I stayed in a small working women's hostel. It was tough. And then he didn't even pay that. So this got even worse. So I had a friend who was working in a bank, and she literally became my banker, would give me a ride. So that's when I joined Dushyant's office for a princely sum of 1,000 to be paid per month. But what I'm trying to say is, with that figure, I moved to Delhi with one suitcase. I lived in a working women's hostels. I inched my way up, but I never looked at it as a disadvantage. For me, as I said earlier, if you enjoy that job, you enjoy that thrill of that work, you know, money becomes an issue which is behind. And then you come to a stage of your career where money is just not an issue. It just comes. It just comes. So, you know, you have to learn. We'll all have different positions in life to build up from. Mine was one extreme. Somebody may have a better position. But when you want to build up something in litigation, believe me, we say litigation has phases. You have a stage, no money, no work. That's first part of litigation. Come to a second stage, lot of work, still no money. Come to a third stage, lot of work, lot of money. And the fourth stage, I don't know, I may not reach, you will, is whether you work or not, money chases you. Okay? So I'm waiting for that to happen to me, but I'm sure Geeta will have more take on that.
So what Meenakshi said is very interesting. I'll tell you about my personal journey. So when I came back from Cambridge, I thought, and my parents took me to Rishikesh, to Vivekananda Ashram, the Divine Society Ashram. And one of the things that was written was that you should be giving some 30% of what you earn back to society. Now I was earning 300 rupees. I couldn't give that 30% away. So I immediately got involved with Manushi and I said, can I give you 30% of my time? So can I come on Tuesdays and Fridays and help you? And then along the way was legal aid. And at that time, the Delhi High Court had suggested that there were nascent steps in legal aid. So High Court had suggested that the then district judge would go to Tihar, and he was finding it too difficult to go. So he said, would you mind that twice a week you go to Tihar and do some legal aid work? And with the women and juvenile. And other prisoners, there were lots of others who needed bail petitions and other things. So I got very involved with all this. And honestly, neither with legal aid nor with any of this did I ever do any billing or bother about billing or think about billing. There would be billing, but apparently their system was, and I didn't bill, but those who bill, they said the budget is so small that we take your bills at the end of the year in March, tear them and throw them in the dustbin. So I never bothered anyway, so it didn't bother me at all. So money was not a concern, and it never remained a concern till there was this question of judgeship, and I said, I don't have a house, I don't have a home, I'm fond of traveling, I'm fond of doing all this. If you don't have money saved, you can't in that day have taken up judgeship. Because what the remuneration was really very modest, even for a High Court judge. So obviously you had those choices to make, and it's been a happy journey. The only thing is, like Meenakshi said, either you have grit, or you have love for what you are doing, or whatever. Something should make you happy and enjoy yourself. And I don't know about this stage. I've not even reached the third stage, which Meenakshi is talking about. Lot of work and lot of money. So I have to first reach that stage. Then we'll go to the fourth one. So having said that, I think that's all that I want to say on this issue.
So, as part of this panel, ma'am, we are also required to, think through and help the audience think of some issues around, how the practice area or litigation has changed the way women have been doing in the profession. So, do you have any views on, what work from home or hybrid model of working has meant for women? Have you seen this as something which has facilitated women working better or being able to do more work and being more comfortable? Or is it at some point of time becoming an issue because, working from home involves a certain level of discipline, not only for the person, but also for the entire family. There needs to be that respect for professional time and effort which goes into us doing our bit. So what has been your experience, especially because you both run a chamber practice and work with a lot of women? Have you seen the pandemic and post-COVID, working from home or hybrid work atmosphere has affected women and their work in litigation sphere?
So I got very involved with a litigation, a public interest litigation, which started in the Delhi High Court, went on to the Supreme Court, this whole issue of work from home and the fact that women wanted to work from home. And then you had members of the Bar Council or the associations, whether High Court or Supreme Court, who were completely answered about it because they said that, it was for them, there were two issues. One issue I feel was weighty, that there are lawyers who get small fees for getting challans and other work. And that would not come to them if they were not appearing personally. When people accused were being presented in courts through VCs. So there was that issue. But the issue with a lot of women was their children were at home, and who's going to look after the children? You're being scared to bring in maids unless you have a live-in maid. You have old parents or parents-in-law. You didn't want them to be exposed to a working woman who is going out, who gets COVID, and there were cases where they had lost parents-in-law because the son or the daughter-in-law had brought in COVID into the house because she was working. So we filed a petition. I had appeared for them. And although Delhi High Court was hesitant, we'd finally gone to Supreme Court and Justice Bobde. And subsequently, in a second round, Justice Call's bench had entertained. And I would always ask these women, a lot of the women who had these issues, what do they feel from working from home? They said, well, for us, we have to either leave the workforce or work from home because of having no help, children at home, old parents-in-law or parents who need to be protected from COVID. So maybe you are earning a fourth of what you were earning, but at least you are in the workplace. Those who had had small babies, for them it was a boon. But I do want to give the reaction of some of our male colleagues. They said, well, if they want to sit at home, tell them not to work. They were completely so offensive with some of the remarks that it was shocking. The discipline, you have to you need that discipline. I see so many women go into corporate law or go into advisory roles because they have children. But at least they are in the workspace. Fact that we have to kill ourselves being disciplined or trying to snatch out time is for many women a reality. So I am not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for all those women who were in that vulnerable zone, for whom that was the only option for them, however difficult it was. Otherwise, they would have, in these 2 years, perhaps been wiped out from the workspace and perhaps never been able to go back, because sometimes when you take a break, you can't come back. So I think all said and done, it worked as a boon for a lot of women. And I was helping them on the forefront in various PILs which they had filed.
We shouldn't hold you back from the lunch too long,
yes.
Okay? So very, very brief there. But I enjoyed my stint, but then I cannot say that for everyone. But having said that, I have a very early experience I was sitting with a male colleague in the courtroom, and somebody I knew stood up in the front and said, "Would you please adjourn my matter? My child has an interview for the school." And the judge adjourned the matter. And now my situation is different. I'm not married. I don't have children. I mean, I'm married later on. At that time, I wasn't married. And I don't have children. So I had a very different lifestyle. So I just looked at my colleague on the side and I scoffed and I said, "What? You be professional. How can you ask for an adjournment because your child has an interview in the school?" And this male colleague of mine, who's today a judge in one of the high courts, stopped me and he said, "Don't forget, your child's admission, the birth of your child, their marriages, etc. are some of very significant events in your life." So I was really admonished that day, and it kind of stuck to me. Coming back to what pandemic did to us, there are a lot of women who said, and as Gita said, was the best thing that happened to them. Because for them to manage little children at home, to manage the court, to manage all of that together was very hard. And they said, we were feeling that we were drifting out of the profession, and some of them very competent young women. And now, because this was virtual hearings, we had an opportunity to be able to argue our cases virtually from home, from the confines of our home, look after our homes, look after our family, and manage all of that. But it also had a flip side. We had a young lawyer who committed suicide during that particular period because, again, no work from the Delhi High Court. So the women had this great initiative in Delhi High Court. They set up what is called a virtual canteen so that women could come together on that virtual platform, share what was going on, see how they could overcome that. So I think, this pandemic has taught us many things. It has, number one, taught us that it is possible to work virtually. I don't think we should take away the virtual working because it works for a lot of women. And we should still carry on with this virtual argument because there are women who are drifting out, still have a position to be there, carry it on. Number two, it's doing worldwide the same. As somebody said before me, men have been coming and asking for how to work from home. If women are able to work efficiently from home, why should we deprive them of the issue? Lastly, while we may have opened the courts physically, we have a Chief Justice who should be there before the end of the year, who is extremely technologically savvy, would want to continue with this virtual process. And then it's a point, it's not just we arguing virtually, but all of you can have a peep into what's going on in the courtroom, sitting in your own offices. You don't have to come into our crowded courtrooms, be jostled around. Sitting in your office, you can watch what the matter's going on. It gives me the comfort, and my laugh was the last thing. When I would go into the courtroom, some junior would get up and offer me my seat. My gray hair did a lot for me. I said, "Mere office mein, my seat nobody takes away." So it's always there for me. I don't have to ask any junior to get up. So that's last advantage of a virtual hearing in a lighter zest. But I think it was a great thing, and I think it should continue, really.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am and Meenakshi ma'am, for a wonderful session. And I'll not hold back the audience from their lunch unless someone has a question for any of them. Thank you.